English class slipped me the cash in the hallway. Come to my birthday party Saturday, but you have to leave by 6:15. My dad gets home from the casino at 6:30. His voice cracked. If he finds anyone in the house, he'll kill me. I needed the money. Saturday at 4 p.m., I knocked on their door. Jordan answered, already shaking. His mom appeared behind him, skeletal thin, a silk scarf hiding her baldness. She hugged me with arms like bird bones. I felt the bruises on her wrists through her sleeves. The living room had 15 teenagers sitting rigid like we were in detention. When Jordan's mom went to the kitchen, a girl whispered, $50? Everyone nodded. We were all hired from different schools. I went to the bathroom and noticed the house was completely empty, except the party room. No furniture anywhere. Every penny was going to her treatment. Jordan kept checking his phone. 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:15. Each time his hands shook harder. His mom brought out a cake, tears streaming. I haven't seen Jordan with friends in 3 years. Not since Tom got promoted. She touched her bruised wrist. He gives Jordan $300 each week to bet his lucky numbers at the casino while he works. Jordan went white. His mom noticed. He couldn't finish. 6 o'clock. Jordan's phone buzzed. He read it, and his legs buckled. He's leaving early. His mom collapsed into a chair. One happy day isn't worth what he'll do. Everyone out. NOW. Jordan was shoving us toward the back door. 6:10. Headlights swept the driveway. We scattered. 8 of us hopped the fence immediately. But I looked back through the kitchen window. Tom walked in. 6'3" in his casino security uniform, scanning everything. The cake, the decorations, his wife trying to smile. Where's my money, Jordan? Dad, please. Tom grabbed Jordan by the collar and dragged him into the hallway. Thump. Jordan's mom screamed. I was frozen at the window, recording on my phone. $300 for strangers to pretend to like you? Another thump. You think you can steal from me? Jordan's mom was sobbing, trying to crawl toward the hallway before collapsing. Tom reappeared, adjusting his uniform. Jordan dragged himself back into view, blood running from his nose, holding his ribs. Tom picked up the birthday cake and threw it against the wall. There's your party. Jordan looked straight at me through the window. Our eyes met for 1 second before he mouthed the word, run. I ran. But I had it all on video. The next morning, Jordan wasn't at school. They arrested Tom at the casino the next day. The security footage from his own workplace showed him leaving early, matching my video's timestamp exactly. Jordan's mom gave a statement from her hospital bed. She'd been too scared to report anything for years, but seeing her son's blood on camera broke something loose. Jordan was placed with his aunt 3 towns over. His mom started treatment at a better facility once Tom's paycheck stopped going to the casino. The court awarded her everything. I didn't see Jordan again until 4 months later. He showed up at my school during lunch, just standing by the fence. I walked over. I never thanked you, he said, for not running right away. I almost did, but you didn't. He looked different, still thin, but not shaking anymore. Mom's in remission. The doctors say she's responding well. That's good. He pulled out his wallet and handed me $50. I can't take that. It's not payment this time. He almost smiled. It's an invitation. My aunt's throwing me a real party next weekend. No time limit, no running. I took the money and handed it back to him. Keep it. I'll come for free. He stared at the bill in his hand for a long moment. First time anyone's ever said that. We stood there in silence. The bell rang. He nodded once and walked away. I went to the party. Jordan looked at the door out of habit. Then he laughed, quiet and surprised, like he'd just remembered his father wasn't coming. That sound was worth more than $50. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jordan's face through that window, blood running from his nose, mouthing the word, run. The video sat on my phone like a weight. At 3 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and watched it again in the dark of my bedroom. Tom's uniform, the timestamp showing 6:17 p.m., Jordan's blood on the carpet, his mother collapsing. Every detail was sharp and clear. This wasn't just some shaky phone footage. It was evidence that could actually help them. I watched it 3 more times, making sure the audio caught Tom's voice, the sound of him hitting Jordan, his mother screaming. It was all there. Everything the police would need to see what really happened in that house. The next day, I walked around like a zombie. My mom noticed me at breakfast, staring at my cereal without eating. She asked if I was feeling sick. I said I was fine, but I kept checking my phone, looking at that video, wondering what I was supposed to do with it. After school, I paced my room for 2 hours. My mom knocked on my door around 6. She told her. She pressed play. I watched her face while she watched the screen. Her jaw got tighter with each second. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. When Tom dragged Jordan into the hallway, she flinched. When Jordan's mother screamed, she closed her eyes for just a moment before forcing them open again. The video ended. She set my phone down very carefully, like it might break. Then she looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something hard and determined and angry all at once. We're calling the police right now. Her voice had no room for argument. She was already reaching for her own phone, already dialing. I sat there while she talked to the emergency operator, explaining that her son had video evidence of child abuse and domestic violence. She gave our address. She said we'd be waiting. She hung up and looked at me again. You did the right thing recording this. Now we're going to make sure it helps them. The police showed up 45 minutes later. 2 officers in uniform knocked on our door. My mom let them in and they sat in our living room, one of them pulling out a notebook while the other one introduced herself as Detective Hope Bradford. Hope had short dark hair and eyes that looked like she'd seen too much bad stuff already. Her partner was younger, quieter, taking notes while Hope asked because something in me knew this evidence mattered. Hope listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked to see the video. I handed her my phone. She watched it twice, her face staying completely calm and professional, even though I could tell it bothered her. She asked her partner to make copies of the file. He pulled out some kind of cable and connected my phone to a laptop, downloading the video while Hope explained what I'd witnessed. Felony assault, domestic violence, child endangerment. She said my video combined with the timestamps could be crucial for building a case against Tom. The casino would have security footage showing when he left work. My video showed when he arrived home. Everything would line up perfectly. Then Hope told me something that made my chest feel less tight. Jordan and his mother were currently safe because Tom worked overnight shifts at the casino. He wouldn't be home until morning, but the police needed to move fast before that happened. Hope looked at me seriously and asked if I'd be willing to testify about what I saw if the case went to court. I didn't even hesitate. I said yes immediately. Jordan had stayed quiet when Tom could have seen me at that window. He'd protected me by keeping his mouth shut even while his father was hurting him. The least I could do was tell the truth about what happened. Hope's partner finished and get warrants. My mom walked them to the door and came back looking tired but relieved. She hugged me without saying anything. We ordered pizza for dinner, but neither of us ate much. The next morning at the school felt wrong. I walked into English class and Jordan's desk was empty. Not just empty like he was absent, empty like someone had cleared out all his stuff. His textbooks were gone. The notebook he always kept in the desk cubby was gone. Even the pencil he'd left there last week was gone. Miss Harrington started the lesson, but I couldn't focus. I kept staring at that empty desk, remembering Jordan sitting there 3 days ago, nervous and shaking, slipping me $50 in the hallway. Miss Harrington noticed me staring. After class, she pulled me aside in the hallway. Do you know why Jordan withdrew so suddenly? Her voice was gentle, concerned. I wanted to tell her everything, but Hope had said the investigation was confidential. I could only say, family emergency, and watch Ms. Harrington's face fall with worry. She touched my shoulder and told me if I needed to talk to someone, the counselor's office was always available. I nodded and left, feeling like I was carrying this huge secret that nobody else could know about yet. That afternoon, my mom's phone rang while I was doing my video plus the casino's own security footage proved he'd left work early that night. His co-workers confirmed he'd seemed angry when he rushed out. His supervisor remembered him checking his phone over and over before leaving. Everything matched the timeline perfectly. Tom was in custody. He couldn't hurt Jordan or his mother anymore, but Hope had more news. The police had also gone to the hospital. They'd found Jordan's mother there, being treated for injuries from that night. Broken ribs, severe bruising all over her body, a concussion she'd been trying to hide. When Detective Bradford showed her my video and explained that Tom was already in jail, Jordan's mother had broken down completely. She'd given a statement about 3 years of abuse, 3 years of being too terrified to tell anyone, 3 years of Tom controlling everything, threatening worse violence if she tried to leave, blaming them both for his gambling losses. She told the police everything. The statement included details that made my stomach hurt. Tom had forced Jordan's mother to hide her cancer diagnosis from family. He'd threatened to hurt Jordan worse if she ever tried to get help. His gambling addiction had started after his promotion to security supervisor. Whenever he lost money at the casino, he'd come home angry and blame them. Child Protective Services had removed Jordan from the house that same day. They'd placed him temporarily with his aunt 3 towns over. His mother would join him there once the hospital released her. Detective Bradford had called my mom specifically to tell me Jordan was safe now. When my mom told me that, I felt this huge weight lift off my chest. The video had worked. That terrible choice to stay at the window instead of running had actually saved them. They were away from Tom. They were safe. But that night, I couldn't sleep again. This time, it wasn't because I was wondering what to do. It was because I kept seeing the video in my head. Tom's fists hitting Jordan. The sound of Jordan's mother screaming. The blood. My mom heard me pacing my room at 2 a.m. and knocked softly. She told me we were seeing the school counselor tomorrow. I tried to say I was fine, but she gave me that look that meant no argument. The next morning, we went to see Derek Mathis during my free period. Derek was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with glasses and a calm voice that made it easier to talk. He explained that witnessing violence can be hard even when you're not the direct victim. Your brain processes it as trauma because you saw someone get hurt and couldn't stop it. He taught me breathing exercises for when the memory in my head over and over. He gave me his card and told me to come back whenever I needed to talk. I went back to Derek's office 3 days later because the nightmares weren't getting better. He walked me through the breathing exercises again and explained that my brain kept replaying the video because it was trying to process what happened. He said it was normal for witnesses to feel stuck in the moment they saw violence occur. We practiced grounding techniques where I had to name 5 things I could see in his office, 4 things I could touch, 3 things I could hear. It helped a little bit. Derek gave me homework to write down the nightmares when they happened, so we could talk about patterns next session. Tom's bail hearing happened on a Thursday morning. My mom got a call from the prosecutor's office telling us the outcome. Tom's lawyer had argued he wasn't dangerous because he'd held his casino job for 6 years without incidents and had ties to the community. The prosecutor played my video in the courtroom. My mom said they told her the judge watched the whole thing without saying a word, just staring at the screen while Tom sat there in his orange jumpsuit. When the video ended, the judge denied bail immediately. He said any man who could beat his own son that badly while the mother lay injured on the floor posed a clear danger to his family. Detective Bradford called our house again. My mom put her on speaker so I could hear. Jordan's mother was discharged from the hospital that afternoon. Her broken ribs were healing, and the concussion had improved enough for her to leave. She'd be staying with Jordan at his aunt's house during recovery. Bradford said the aunt had a 3-bedroom house with plenty of space for both of them. The aunt had already enrolled Jordan in the local high school, so he could finish the semester without more disruption. Bradford's voice sounded lighter when she talked about Jordan and his mother being together in a safe place. She said the aunt seemed like a caring person who genuinely wanted to help them rebuild their lives. My mom thanked her for the update, and I felt relieved knowing Jordan wasn't alone anymore. The prosecutor's office contacted my mom the following week about me giving a deposition. Since I was a minor witness, they needed to record my statement officially before trial. We drove to the courthouse on Saturday morning. The building was mostly empty on the weekend. A woman from the prosecutor's office led us to a conference room with a camera set up on a tripod. She explained they'd ask me questions about what I witnessed, and I should answer as clearly as possible. My mom sat beside me the whole time. They asked me to describe everything from the moment I looked back through Jordan's bloody nose and how he held his ribs when he came back into view. The prosecutor said my testimony about Tom's deliberate violence toward a minor would strengthen their case significantly. She said, having a witness who wasn't family made the evidence even more powerful because I had no reason to lie. The whole deposition took 90 minutes, and I felt exhausted when we left. At the school on Monday, kids started asking me questions about Jordan. I was getting books from my locker when 3 girls from my math class cornered me in the hallway. They wanted to know why Jordan disappeared so suddenly. One of them said she heard Jordan got arrested for stealing. Another said someone told her Jordan was in rehab. I realized rumors were spreading through school, and nobody knew the truth. I didn't know what to say without breaking Jordan's privacy. Miss Harrington walked past right then and overheard the conversation. She stopped and turned to face the girls. Her voice was sharp when she reminded them that speculating about absent students' personal lives was cruel and inappropriate. She said Jordan had family circumstances that required him to change schools, and that was all anyone needed to know. The girls looked embarrassed and walked away quickly. Miss Harrington caught my eye for a second and nodded. I felt grateful she'd passed my phone number along to Jordan's aunt. 3 days went by without anything. Then my phone buzzed during dinner with a text from an unknown number. It said, "It's Jordan, thanks for not running," and nothing else. I saved the contact immediately. My hands shook a little while I typed back, "Glad you're safe," and hit send. He didn't respond that night, but I kept checking my phone anyway. Jordan and I started texting occasionally over the next few weeks. Nothing heavy or serious. He'd send me questions about homework assignments he missed. I'd tell him about stupid things happening at the school. He mentioned TV shows he was watching and asked if I'd seen them. We talked about how weird it must be to change schools in the middle of the year. He never brought up Tom or what happened that night. He didn't talk about the abuse directly, but he told me his aunt's house had a big backyard with old trees. He said his mom was getting stronger slowly. She could walk around the house now without getting too tired. That felt like progress to me. Our texts were normal and boring in the best way possible. Just 2 people talking about regular things. The prosecutor called my mom again about a month after the arrest. They'd offered Tom a plea deal. 15 years in prison with possibility of parole after 10 years if he pleaded guilty to aggravated assault, child endangerment, completely willing to go to trial if Tom refused the deal. She sounded confident when she said that. My mom asked what would happen if Tom rejected the plea. The prosecutor said they'd proceed to trial and I'd have to testify in person. My mom's face went pale when she heard that. Tom rejected the plea deal 2 weeks later. Detective Bradford called to tell us. Tom was demanding a trial. Apparently he thought he could claim self-defense, or that Jordan provoked him somehow. Bradford said this despite the clear video evidence showing him beating his son while his wife lay injured on the floor. Bradford's voice was frustrated when she explained this to my mom. She warned us that this decision meant I'd definitely have to testify in person at trial. We'd need to start preparing for that reality. My mom scheduled another appointment with Derek to help me get ready for testifying. I felt scared about facing Tom in a courtroom, but I knew I had to do it. Jordan texted me good news in early March. His mother had started chemotherapy again at a better cancer center near his aunt's house. The oncologist was optimistic about her treatment. She was finally getting consistent care without the stress and fear of living with Tom. Jordan said she'd gained 7 pounds since leaving the hospital. Her bruises were almost completely healed now. Reading those tiny emoji in our conversations, Derek started helping me practice for trial testimony in our counseling sessions. He'd do mock question and answer sessions where he pretended to be the defense attorney trying to rattle me. He taught me to stick to facts when answering questions, pause before responding to think about my answer, never guess or speculate about things I didn't directly witness. He reminded me over and over that telling the truth was the most powerful thing I could do for Jordan's family. We practiced for 3 sessions. Derek would ask aggressive questions like, "Are you sure you saw that?" or "Couldn't you be mistaken about what happened?" And I'd practice staying calm and repeating what I knew I saw. By the 3rd session, I felt more prepared, but still nervous about the real thing. The prosecutor called my mom in late April. The trial date was set for the 1st week of June, 5 weeks away. My stomach twisted when Mom told me. I'd been expecting this call for months, but hearing the actual date made it real. I was going to have to walk into a courtroom and look at Tom while describing what he did to his family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Tom's face in the courtroom, imagining him staring at me while I testified. Jordan texted me the next morning before school. His message was short, but I read it 3 times that I understood. Part of me was relieved Jordan wouldn't have to sit through that, but part of me wished he'd be there so I wouldn't feel so alone. Derek helped me practice more during our next session. He threw harder questions at me this time, trying to prepare me for whatever the defense attorney might ask. By the end of the session, my hands were shaking, but I felt slightly more ready. My mom went to the school office the week before trial. She needed to arrange for me to miss 2 days of classes. Miss Harrington found out somehow and pulled me aside after English class. She closed the classroom door and looked at me with this serious expression. She told me what I was doing was incredibly brave. Then she shared something personal. Her sister had been in an abusive marriage years ago. Witnesses like me made the difference between victims staying trapped or getting free. Miss Harrington's voice got quiet when she said that. She touched my shoulder once and told me to stay strong. I nodded because I couldn't speak without my voice cracking. Walking out of that classroom, I felt like someone actually understood what this testimony meant, not just for Jordan's family but for other people stuck in situations like that. Jordan called me on Saturday. Not a text, an actual phone call. My phone rang and his name popped up, and I stared at it for these big family dinners every night where everyone sat around the table talking. He said his mother laughs now when they watch movies together. Real laughs, not the scared quiet ones from before. Jordan's voice sounded completely different through the phone. Calmer, lighter somehow. Like he was finally allowed to just be a regular teenager instead of someone constantly bracing for the next hit. He talked about joining the school's music club and learning guitar from the neighbor. Normal teenage stuff. When we hung up, I sat there holding my phone, realizing how much he'd changed in just a few months. The courthouse hallway had hard plastic chairs bolted to the floor. My mom and I got there early on the first day of trial. We sat near the courtroom doors waiting for them to call me as a witness. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and old coffee. Other people walked past carrying folders and briefcases. At 9:30, Tom's parents arrived. I recognized them from photos Jordan had shown me once. They looked angry. His father wore a suit that didn't fit right, and his mother had her mouth set in this tight line. They saw me sitting there and both of them stared. Not just looked, stared. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong instead of their son who beat his family. Tom's father took a step toward us. Tom sat back down next to me and took my hand. We waited another hour before someone finally called my name. The courtroom was bigger than I expected. Wood panels on the walls and rows of benches like church pews. Tom sat at the defense table wearing a dark suit and tie. He looked nothing like the man in the casino uniform from my video. Nothing like the violent person who'd beaten his son. He looked like someone's dad going to a business meeting. That scared me more than if he'd looked angry. The prosecutor was a woman in her 40s with glasses and a calm voice. She asked me to describe what I witnessed that night at Jordan's house. I looked at the jury instead of at Tom. 12 people sitting in 2 rows, all watching me. I told them everything. How I'd stayed at the window. How Tom dragged Jordan into the hallway. The sounds of him hitting his son. Jordan's mother trying to crawl toward them before collapsing. My voice stayed steady the whole time. I'd practiced enough with Derek that the words came out clear and factual. When I finished, the prosecutor thanked me and sat down. The defense attorney stood up. He was younger than the prosecutor, maybe early 30s, with slicked back hair. He asked if I was certain about what I saw through the window. Suggested maybe the angle was misleading, or I'd misunderstood what was happening. I saw his nose. The defense attorney tried a few more questions, but I kept my answers simple and factual. Then the prosecutor asked to play my video for the jury. The bailiff wheeled in a TV on a cart. The courtroom went completely silent. My video played on that screen. Tom's voice coming through the speakers demanding to know where his money was. The sound of him hitting Jordan. Jordan's mother screaming. Several jurors shifted in their seats. One woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes with a tissue. The defense attorney objected twice during the video, but the judge overruled him both times. When the video ended, the courtroom stayed silent for a long moment. The prosecutor had no more questions. The defense attorney said he was done too. The judge told me I could step down. Jordan's mother testified the next morning. I was allowed to stay in the courtroom since I'd already given my testimony. She walked to the witness stand slowly, still thin but stronger looking than in my video. The prosecutor asked her to describe her marriage to Tom. Jordan's mother's voice was quiet at first, but got steadier as she talked. She described 3 years of escalating abuse, specific incidents with dates and details. How Tom started getting violent after his promotion at the casino. How he blamed her. Tom isolated her from her family. How he controlled all their money so she couldn't leave. How he threatened to hurt Jordan worse if she tried to report anything. The jury listened without moving. Some of them looked sick. Jordan's mother talked for almost 2 hours, answering every question the prosecutor asked. The defense attorney stood up for cross-examination. He suggested that Jordan's mother might be confused because of her cancer medications, that maybe her memory wasn't reliable. The prosecutor objected immediately. The judge sustained it, but the defense attorney had planted the idea. Then the prosecutor called a new witness, Jordan's mother's oncologist. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. A doctor in her 50s who'd been treating her for the past 6 months. The oncologist testified that Jordan's mother's treatment had been dangerously delayed, that Tom wouldn't allow her to see doctors regularly, that her cancer was much more advanced when she finally got consistent care than it should have been. The oncologist explained that the current remission was remarkable, that most patients with cancer that advanced don't respond so well to treatment. She said the stress and fear of living with Tom had absolutely made Jordan's mother's condition for hours. We waited in a small room near the courtroom. My mom brought sandwiches, but I couldn't eat. At 3 in the afternoon, the bailiff came to get us. The jury had reached a verdict. Everyone filed back into the courtroom. Tom sat at the defense table looking straight ahead. The judge asked the jury foreman to stand. Guilty on all counts. Aggravated assault, child endangerment, domestic violence. Tom showed no emotion when the verdict was read. His face stayed blank like he was watching something boring on TV. The judge thanked the jury and scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. After the judge left, Detective Bradford came over to where my mom and I were sitting. She told us that the conviction rate for domestic violence cases is usually much lower, that my video evidence made this case impossible for the defense to deny. She shook my hand and thanked me for being brave enough to record what I saw. Sentencing day came 2 weeks later. Same courthouse, same courtroom. Tom sat at the defense table in handcuffs this time. The judge reviewed the case details and the jury's verdict. Then she announced the sentence. 18 years in prison. No possibility of parole for 12 years. The judge cited the severity of violence against his own child, the pattern of abuse against his wife. The bailiff moved immediately, blocking Tom's view and grabbing his arm. 2 more bailiffs appeared and removed Tom from the courtroom through a side door. He tried to look back at me one more time, but they had him by both arms. The door closed behind them with a heavy click. My mom squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. The judge banged her gavel once and court was dismissed. I walked out of the courtroom into the hallway, my legs shaky from watching Tom get sentenced. Jordan's mother was waiting there, and when she saw me, she moved fast. She wrapped her arms around me and squeezed so tight I couldn't breathe properly. Her voice kept repeating the same words right next to my ear. You saved our lives. You saved our lives. You saved our lives. She said it maybe 10 times before she let go enough for me to step back. She looked completely different from the video on my phone. Her face had actual color now instead of that gray, sick look. She wore a wig that looked real, brown with highlights, styled like a normal mom's haircut. The silk scarf was gone. The bird bone arms had some weight on them. She wasn't the skeleton woman from Jordan's living room anymore. The divorce happened fast because Tom was locked up and couldn't fight it properly. Jordan's mother had a restraining order that money through years of work. The judge looked at him like he was stupid. She said that after what Tom did to his wife and son, he should consider himself lucky his ex-wife wasn't suing him for additional damages on top of everything else. The lawyer sat down. Jordan's mother got everything. My phone buzzed during math class 3 weeks later. A text from Jordan. We're moving back into the house. My aunt is helping Mom redecorate everything. New paint, new furniture, new locks on all the doors. Mom sold all of Dad's casino stuff, his lucky poker chips and card decks and all those framed photos of him with his security team. We're using that money plus the pension to make it feel completely different. Like he was never there. I texted back asking if he was okay with going back to that house. He replied fast. It's not his house anymore. It's ours now. We're erasing him from every room. 4 months passed. I was sitting in the cafeteria eating lunch when I looked out the window and saw someone standing by the fence. Just standing there, not moving, staring at the building. I recognized Jordan immediately even though he was far away. My heart started pounding hard. I hadn't seen him in person since that night through the kitchen window. I dropped my sandwich and headed for the door. Nobody asked where I was going. I walked, stood still and calm. He spoke first. I wanted to thank you. For not running away when everyone else did. For recording what happened even though it was dangerous. His voice was steady, not cracking like it used to. I shrugged because I didn't know what to say. He kept talking. You could have just run. You should have run. But you stayed at that window with your phone out while my dad was hurting me, and that took guts. Real guts. I finally found words. I almost did run. I was so scared my hands were shaking. I nearly dropped my phone twice. Jordan nodded like he expected that answer. That's what makes it brave. Doing the right thing even when you're terrified. My therapist has been helping me understand the difference between fear and actual danger. Fear is just a feeling. Danger is real. That night was real danger, and you stayed anyway. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He took out a $50 bill, the same amount he'd paid me to come to that first party. He held it out toward me. I started to shake my head no, but he interrupted. It's not payment this time. My aunt is throwing me a real birthday party next weekend. I want you there as an actual friend, not someone I hired. The $50 is just the invitation. Old habit, I guess. I looked at the money in his hand. The party. He smiled for real. Not that fake smile he used to wear when he was trying to convince people everything was fine. This smile reached his eyes. I could see the person he was becoming without fear crushing him every second. I took the $50 from him, then I held it back out. Keep it. I'll come for free. That's what friends do. Jordan stared at the bill in his hand. He looked at it for maybe 30 seconds without saying anything. Then he laughed. The sound was surprised and happy and free. First time anyone's ever said that to me. He folded the money and put it back in his wallet. We stood by the fence talking until the bell rang. Normal stuff. School and music and some show we both watched. The weather. A movie coming out next month. Jordan talked about his new history teacher who assigned too much homework. I complained about my English essay. The conversation felt easy and natural. Jordan wasn't performing anymore. He wasn't managing everyone's reactions or trying to keep people calm. He was just being himself. A regular teenager talking to a friend about regular things. I realized that was something he probably never got to do when Tom was around. Every word he said back then had to be calculated to avoid setting off his father. Now he could just talk. Jordan kept talking, his voice steady and sure. Time to heal. Time to watch him grow up. Time to build a life that was actually theirs. He looked down at the grass between us. His therapist said stress can make cancer worse, and his mother had been drowning in it for years. Now she could breathe. Now she could fight. The doctors kept using words like remarkable and unexpected, and Jordan said he knew it was because she finally felt safe enough to get better. Before he left, Jordan mentioned the party again. He said there would only be about 6 people there. Some kids from his new school and his aunt's neighbor's son who'd been friendly. He said it apologetically, like he was worried I'd be disappointed after that first party with 15 hired strangers. But I told him that 6 real friends were worth more than 50 paid strangers any day. He smiled at that. A real smile that reached his eyes. Then he walked back toward the parking lot and I watched him go, noticing how different his walk was now. No hunched shoulders, no quick glances around, just a regular kid heading home. That weekend, I drove to Jordan's aunt's house for the party. The neighborhood was completely different from where he used to live. Quieter streets with actual trees lining both sides. Houses with gardens in front, instead of It opened. Jordan's aunt stood there with a huge smile on her face. She was shorter than I expected, with gray streaks in her dark hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She pulled me into a hug before I could say anything. She thanked me for being such a good friend to her nephew, called me brave and kind. I felt awkward, but also proud. She kept one hand on my shoulder as she led me inside, talking about how happy Jordan had been all week preparing for this party. Inside, the house felt warm and full of laughter. Decorations hung from the ceiling, streamers and balloons in blue and silver. Jordan's aunt had clearly put real effort into hanging everything. The living room had a big couch and chairs arranged, so people could actually talk to each other. Photos covered the walls. Jordan at different ages. His aunt with people I didn't recognize. A family that looked happy and safe. Jordan saw me and came over immediately. He introduced me to the other guests one by one. 2 girls from his English class who were debating something about a book they'd read. A guy from his soccer team who was tall and kept making jokes. Samuel from next door who was teaching Jordan guitar and had brought his acoustic to show everyone. They all treated me like I was just another friend, not the person who recorded the video. The soccer team guy was setting up a video game and called Jordan over to help. Everything felt normal and easy. Jordan's mother sat in a comfortable chair by the window. She looked tired but genuinely happy as she watched Jordan joke around with his friends. She wore a bright scarf over her wig, red with gold patterns. When she caught me looking, she smiled and mouthed thank you across the room. I had to look away before I started crying. She looked so different from that night. Her face had color now. Her eyes were clear. She was wearing regular clothes instead of that silk scarf hiding everything. She looked like someone who was allowed to exist instead of someone trying to disappear. Jordan sat on the arm of her chair for a minute, and they talked quietly. She touched his hand. He leaned into her shoulder. Small moments that probably happened all the time now, but still felt important. Jordan's aunt disappeared into the kitchen and came back carrying a homemade cake. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Nothing fancy, but made with obvious care. She set it on the coffee table and started lighting candles. We all gathered around and sang happy birthday, while Jordan grinned and blushed. His face turned red, but he was smiling the whole time. When we finished singing, he leaned forward to blow out the candles. I cut the cake into pieces and passed them around on paper plates. The frosting was sweet, and the cake was moist. Real homemade cake that someone had spent time making because they cared. We ate cake and played video games and talked about music and movies. Nobody mentioned Tom or the trial or anything heavy. The soccer team guy told a story about their coach making them run extra laps. One of the girls complained about her math teacher. Samuel played a song on his guitar that he was learning. Jordan argued with the soccer guy about which character was best in the video game. Regular teenage conversations about regular things. I watched Jordan relax more with each hour. His shoulders dropped. His laugh got louder. He sprawled on the couch instead of sitting rigid, like he was slowly believing that this safety was real and permanent. That nobody was going to burst through the door, that he was allowed to just be himself and have fun. Around 6 o'clock, I noticed Jordan glance at the door out of pure habit. His whole body tensed for just a second. His hands gripped the video game controller tighter. His eyes went to the clock on the wall, but then he looked around at his aunt's living room, at his mother smiling from her chair, at his friends laughing over the video game, at Samuel tuning his guitar. Jordan caught me watching him have that realization. He laughed, quiet and surprised and free, like he just discovered something wonderful. He looked right at me and said, "It's 6:30. I understood immediately what he meant. This was the time Tom would have arrived. The deadline that used to mean danger. The moment when everyone had to run. And now it was just another moment in a safe, happy evening. Just numbers on a clock that didn't mean anything bad anymore. Jordan kept looking at me while his friends kept playing the game around us. His eyes were bright. His smile was real. He shook his head like he couldn't believe it himself. That laugh, that moment of Jordan recognizing his own freedom, felt more important than the guilty verdict or the prison sentence. This was what justice actually looked like. Not Tom behind bars, but Jordan able to exist past 6:30 without fear. Able to have friends over without checking the clock. Able to just be a teenager at his own birthday party. Able to laugh and play games and eat cake without terror hanging over everything. The trial had put Tom in prison, but this moment proved Jordan was free. Really free. Not just physically safe, but emotionally free to live without that constant dread. I watched him turn on. He acted out the math teacher's weird hand gestures and the gym coach's obsession with dodgeball. His friends laughed and added their own stories about the same teachers. The soccer guy mimicked how the coach yelled during practice. One of the girls did a perfect impression of the librarian shushing people. Jordan bounced between impressions, getting sillier each time, making exaggerated faces and dramatic gestures. He pretended to be the principal doing morning announcements, then switched to the cafeteria lady who always gave extra fries. His whole body relaxed into the performance, shoulders loose, hands waving around. Nobody here knew what a big deal this was. They just saw Jordan being funny and weird like any other teenager at a party. But I watched him transform into someone who could be goofy without fear, and it hit different, knowing where he came from. 8 o'clock passed while we played video games on the couch. Jordan sprawled across the cushions instead of sitting rigid, his legs stretched out, controller in one hand while he ate cake with the other. He trash-talked the soccer guy about losing the race in the game and made jokes about the characters' stupid outfits. The room filled with normal teenage chaos, controllers clicking, people shouting at the screen, someone spilling soda and hands folded in her lap. The scarf around her head had shifted a little, but her face looked peaceful. No tension in her jaw or forehead, just exhausted from the excitement of watching her son be happy for hours. Jordan's aunt walked over quietly and pulled a soft blanket from the closet. She draped it over Jordan's mother without making any noise, tucking it gently around her shoulders. Jordan saw this happen from across the room. He stopped mid-sentence during his turn in the game and just stared at his sleeping mother for a long moment. His face went soft in a way I'd never seen before, tender and protective and sad and grateful all mixed together. He watched his aunt adjust the blanket one more time, making sure his mother was comfortable. Then he turned back to the game quickly, but I caught the way he blinked hard a few times. I looked away and focused on the TV screen, giving him space for whatever he was feeling. Some moments aren't meant to be witnessed too closely. Parents started showing up around 9 o'clock to collect their kids. Car headlights swept across the front windows as vehicles pulled into the driveway. Jordan's aunt answered the door each time, thanking the parents for letting their kids come. The soccer guy's dad came in and shook Jordan's hand, saying it was a great party. One of the girls' moms hugged. One girl mentioned a group chat they had for homework help and asked if Jordan wanted to be added. Samuel from next door packed up his guitar and told Jordan about a recital happening next month at the community center. He said they needed more performers and Jordan should sign up to play something. Jordan said yes, without hesitating, without that careful pause he used to have before committing to anything. He just nodded and said, "That sounds cool, count me in." Samuel grinned and said he'd text Jordan the details tomorrow. They did that casual guy handshake thing before Samuel headed out. Everyone left with actual plans to see each other again. Real friendships forming instead of paid appearances. Jordan walked me to my car when it was my turn to leave. The night air felt cool after being inside for hours. His aunt's porch light cast long shadows across the driveway. Jordan stopped next to my car door and said thanks for coming. This was really fun. His voice sounded light and easy, not heavy with trauma or desperate gratitude like before. Just a normal thank you between friends after a good time. Then he asked if I wanted to hang out next week. Said there was a new superhero movie coming out on Friday, and maybe we could catch it. He said it casually, like asking a friend to see a movie was the most normal thing in the world. Up movie times right there in the driveway. Picked the 7 o'clock showing and agreed to meet at the theater. Made actual specific plans with times and details, the way friends do. Jordan put the date in his phone calendar and showed me the screen to confirm. It felt completely normal and unremarkable, which made it remarkable for him. I got in my car and started the engine. Jordan stepped back onto the curb and waved as I backed out of the driveway. Through my rearview mirror, I watched him standing there under the porch light, one hand raised in a casual goodbye. He looked like any regular 17-year-old kid saying bye to a friend after a party. Not someone who used to check the clock every 5 minutes in terror. Not someone whose father dragged him down hallways and beat him bloody. Just a teenager in jeans and a hoodie, waving goodbye, probably thinking about the leftover cake in the kitchen. I drove away slowly, checking the mirror one more time. Jordan turned and walked back toward his aunt's house, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed. The porch light went off behind him as he went inside. That image stayed with me the whole drive home. Jordan walking into a safe house without looking over his shoulder. Jordan existing in a space where 6:30 didn't mean anything bad anymore. The next few weeks turned us into actual friends, instead of people connected by trauma, talking about music and arguing about which streaming shows were worth watching. Jordan told me bits about his therapy sessions sometimes, mentioned that his counselor was helping him work through stuff. He talked about his mother's treatment schedule, and how tired the chemo made her, but how the doctors seemed hopeful. Mostly, though, we just talked about normal teenage things. He showed me photos of his aunt's cat doing dumb stuff. I told him about the drama in my friend group at the school. We shared homework answers and complained about early morning classes. Our friendship grew into something real and balanced, not built on the foundation of that terrible night. We were just two people who liked hanging out, who texted each other random thoughts, who made plans to see movies and grab food. The trauma that connected us first faded into background context instead of the main thing between us. Jordan started doing better in the school, without constant fear eating at his brain. His texts mentioned getting a B+ on a history test and joining the soccer team at his new school. He sent me photos from games, action shots of him running down the field, blurry pictures of the scoreboard when they won. He complained about morning practices starting at 6 a.m. and how the coach made them run extra laps when someone met. Not me supporting him through recovery. Not him being grateful I saved his life. Just two people sharing the regular annoying parts of being teenagers. He texted me about college applications he was starting to think about. I sent him photos of my dog doing stupid tricks. We argued about which video game was better and made plans to play online together. The friendship became real because it wasn't about what happened anymore. It was about who we were now, two people who genuinely liked each other and wanted to stay friends. 2 months after the party, Jordan sent me a photo that made me stop scrolling through my phone. His mother standing next to a bell at the cancer center, her hand on the rope, the biggest smile on her face. Jordan's aunt stood beside her with her arm around her shoulders, both of them crying happy tears. The caption just said she finished chemo, and the scans look good. I stared at that photo for a long time, zoomed in on their faces, the joy and relief so clear in their expressions. Jordan's mother looked stronger than in any previous picture. Her face fuller, color in her cheeks, real hope in her eyes. I saved that photo to my phone immediately, filed it in a folder I'd never delete. That image represented everything working out the way it should. Because a teenager with a shaky phone recorded evidence through a kitchen window. I texted back a bunch of celebration emojis and told Jordan I was so happy for them. He replied with a simple thanks, followed by, she's talking about going back to work soon, taking online classes, getting her life back. Those words mattered more than any verdict or sentence. She's getting her life back. Jordan told me his mother enrolled in online accounting classes because she wanted to work again. She had energy now without the constant stress and fear draining her. She was determined to build financial independence, so she never had to rely on anyone else for survival. Jordan said she studied at the kitchen table every morning, taking notes and watching lecture videos, completely focused on creating her own path forward. The house was fully theirs now after the divorce settlement, transformed into a space that felt safe. Jordan sent me photos of the redecorated rooms, bright yellow paint in the kitchen, new furniture in the living room that didn't match anything from before, plants growing on the windowsills, actual green living things that needed care and attention, photos of Jordan and his mother hanging on every wall, both of them smiling in each picture. The house looked completely different from when I played video games without checking the clock. 6 months after I recorded that video, Jordan invited me to a small dinner at his house. He texted saying his mother wanted to celebrate her remission milestone with the people who mattered most, just me, his aunt, and them. I drove to the address, which was the original house but felt like visiting a completely different place. The outside looked the same, but when Jordan opened the door, everything inside had changed. Bright paint covered walls that used to be dingy. New furniture filled rooms that used to echo empty. Plants grew on the windowsills where I used to stand outside looking in. Photos of Jordan and his mother smiling covered the walls, erasing any trace of the family that used to live here in fear. The kitchen where Tom threw the birthday cake against the wall now had cheerful yellow paint and a table set for 4 people. Jordan's mother greeted me with a huge hug, and she felt solid and strong instead of bird bone fragile. Her hair was growing back in soft patches under a colorful scarf. Her face had color and life. She looked me in the eyes and thanked me for coming, for everything, for that night when I didn't run. The house smelled like home cooking instead of fear. Music played softly from a speaker. Jordan's aunt bustled around the kitchen finishing dinner preparation. Sit down at the dinner table around 7 o'clock, and Jordan's mother starts telling stories about him as a little kid, before everything went bad. She talks about how Jordan used to build these crazy forts out of couch cushions and blankets, spending entire afternoons arranging them just right before inviting her inside for pretend tea parties. Jordan laughs at this, actually laughs, and I realize I've never heard him talk about his childhood before, because he probably buried all those memories to survive. His aunt jumps in with her own stories about the rare times Jordan visited her house back then, how he'd be so tense and quiet the first day, constantly checking his phone even though he was just a little kid, and by the second day, he'd start to relax and act like a normal child. She says the difference now is like night and day, that Jordan comes over almost every afternoon since they live so close, and he's becoming the kid he should have been all along. Jordan's mother gets tears in her eyes talking about his 5th birthday party. The last one before Tom's promotion changed everything. When Jordan were invited his whole kindergarten class and spent the day running around the backyard playing tag. I watch Jordan's face while she talks, and he looks happy but also sad, like he's mourning the childhood Tom stole from him. After dinner, color Tom probably chose. Posters of bands and movies cover every surface, stuff Jordan actually likes instead of whatever he had to pretend to like around his father. His books are organized on shelves by genre, and there's a guitar in the corner that his neighbor Samuel is teaching him to play. Jordan tells me he's been gradually moving his stuff back from his aunt's place, reclaiming this space as his own instead of the prison cell it used to be. He's put up photos of him and his mother, him and his aunt, him and his new friends, creating a visual record of his actual life instead of the fake one he had to perform. I tell him the room looks great, and he smiles and says it feels like his for the first time ever. Around 9 o'clock, I tell them I need to head home, and Jordan's mother gets up from her chair to walk me to the door. She hugs me tight, and I can feel how much stronger she is now, compared to that first party when her arms felt like bird bones. She tells me she's grateful every single day that I stayed at that window instead of running like everyone else. She says that one choice I made changed the entire path of their lives, gave them both a future they never thought they'd have, and she hopes I understand how much that matters. I don't know what to say, so I just hug her back and tell her I'm glad to see next weekend. Jordan mentioned he's thinking about college, maybe studying music or education, building a life based on what he actually wants, instead of what he needs to survive. He's making real friendships that aren't based on payment or desperation, connections with people who like him for who he actually is. That sound of his surprised laughter at 6:30 plays in my mind, that moment when he realized his father wasn't coming, and never would again. I know that moment was worth every second of fear I felt standing at that window with my phone shaking in my hands. Sometimes doing the right thing when you're scared creates effects that save lives, and watching Jordan and his mother build their new life proves that courage, even shaky, uncertain courage, can change everything. That's my read on it. I already know some of you are shaking your head right now. Tell me why in the comments. I want to see every angle.